spiritual concepts, I noticed that some people say they have psychic abilities, but it doesn't appear that they have psychic abilities. A lot of people want to tap into. A lot of people won't want to tap into this magic or this
Yeah,
science, should I say? But they just don't. I into it, whether it's sex magic or whatever. You can see in their life. Like a person said, show me your life, I'll tell you what you're thinking. You can see it
right,
in their life that they're just not tapping into these things that they claim that they are. My
right.
question is, Makaba, how much does this energy and this ability have to do with your ability to tap into your heart? Because one thing I notice a lot of our people is missing is love in our life. And I'm
Right.
wondering, is because we're missing love, is that the key ingredient that's preventing these people, these same people, from doing this magic that they want to do so bad?
That's actually a very, very good point, because I was going to say that really one of the best ways to tap into psychic abilities is actually tapping into the energy of compassion and empathy, because a lot of people don't understand that in order to have compassion, you have to be able to step outside of yourself and be able to feel or perceive what
Phil.
somebody else is feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like a lot of
Yeah.
people are just so self-centered that they can't really go beyond their self or the ego. So yeah, that's really a major part of it, is activating the heart, because I believe like the heart produces like, I'm not 100%. I think it's like 5 to 10 times as much like electrical energy as the brain. So yeah, the heart is key, because like you
Yeah.
said, a lot of people have the knowledge mentally, but they haven't really actualized it or internalized it within their heart. And that's really the difference between, you know, bringing things into reality and just kind of living in your head. A lot of us kind of live in our head because we haven't really truly become the information. We haven't truly began to embody it. So yeah, it's really the heart, I would really say, is almost might be more important than the mind at certain points, because think about your grandmother, right? A lot of times, like our grandmothers, even though they may have been Christianized or whatever, their prayers still held weight, just because for one
Yep.
thing, they was
Yep.
convinced. They had 100%
Mm-hmm.
conviction. They was actually praying from their heart. So even though they may have been,
Mm.
indoctrinated, quote unquote, with the Jesus and the religion, their heart was pure and in the right place. So that can even bypass a lot of the mind control a lot of times. So yeah, the heart is
Mm.
definitely key.
What do you think is what? All right, so if the heart is key, what do you think is one of the main things in society? Because that's obviously we see the women aren't the same anymore, and the
Right,
men aren't the same no more. So, what
right.
is the one of the main things you think that we started engaging in that took away that heart energy that we possessed before? Despite we was in poverty, despite the oppression, despite everything, we still had that heart energy. What's one of the main things we started to do that took that away, stripped that away from us, both men and women?
Honestly, it's just like the destruction of the family. Like families don't really hit the same like they used to, bro. Like even when I was like a young kid, like just the family gatherings, just kind of like that general feeling of just togetherness. I just feel like people are more isolated now. I guess some people may
Yeah.
blame social media, the internet, or just the modern world, but I just think overall we don't really connect on a pure level as much. And I think that's really like one of the biggest tragedies, because a lot of times in order to activate this love within yourself, a lot of times you have to see a model of love first. So if you have like,
Yeah.
a broken home, or you've been abused, or you never felt that love initially growing up as a kid, it'll be hard for you to even know what it looks like. So, a lot of young men growing up in our community, they've never actually seen a real man and the principles and all of the things that come with that. And the same thing with women. So I just think the destruction of the family, I think, individualism being kind of like what most people focus on, I think that kind of has degraded just the community aspect. And I definitely think that's something that's overlooked. When you don't really have a strong community, it's kind of hard to really even find that love, because like even in our community, bro, it's a lot of people competing with each other. Like even in this conscious community, people trying to compete over who's the most woke, or who's the
Exactly.
deepest, or who got the
Exactly.
most clout. And yeah, I just think it's a lot of division, and I think it's just a lot of like ulterior motives. And like I say, with a lot of this stuff, purity of heart is really what will separate you. So Yeah, bro. I just think it's a lot of social factors that just contribute to that whole situation.
Mhm. Indeed, indeed. Do you think that you mentioned Christianity earlier, and our grandma's prayers, they was in Christianity and their prayers worked. I'm noticing it seems as though, and this may sound weird, it seems as though we were more magical under Christianity. It seems as though once we started to embrace the new age information, it seems as though the people didn't have that magic the same way that they once had. It's weird. And I'm not, I'm not saying go back to being Christian, or I'm not saying go left or right. But what I
Yeah.
am saying is I just noticed, like you said, I noticed our grandma and that energy was there when we were under that spell of religion. So what do you think about this whole new age movement and its effect on our ability to have psychic and enhance our psychic powers?
Yeah, I just think, we've become a little bit too left brained, a little kind of just too intellectual. Like I say, it's like I see people like in my comment section arguing over like what's the truth, and arguing over like, okay, are we Moors? Are we Hebrew Israelites? Or are we the Kemites? It's like we arguing over all of this information instead of actually focusing on the
Right.
actual work. Because truthfully, all of these different philosophies and all of these different spiritual systems, there really isn't one that's better, quote unquote, than the other one. Different things work for you. So I mean, you can be
Yeah.
Christian, you can be, Muslim, you can be any of these things, but like I said, it still go back to your heart. So I just think, we kind of got to a point where we started to kind of worship the information and like worship the books, and even kind of like worship the
Yeah.
teachers and like the knowledge that they were speaking, instead of actually living it and embracing it. So yeah, I think that's what it is. I think when we were kind of just more like, I guess, under the Christian program, I just think we was just more naturally connected just to the earth and just to ourselves. And just over time, like I said, we kind of lost the community aspect in a certain way. We kind of lost like the connection with nature in a certain way. And I really think that may be one of the biggest things too, because I know like my
Wow.
grandma, she grew up a lot differently than I grew up, to where, she was kind of still
Right.
like working directly with the land and stuff. So they kind of just had a different relationship with reality. Um, so yeah, I just think, as time evolved, we kind of shifted just the way that we collectively think and the way that we move. And in some ways it's better, but in some ways it's worse. But yeah, I just think we became a little too obsessed with the information. Um, and it just takes time to actually put it into practice and actually start to live it versus just studying. It's a difference between being a practitioner and, being someone that studies it.
No, indeed, indeed. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you so. A lot of times, Macabre, I've noticed just throughout my journey, that people that are into this information, when shit hit the fan, like big time, they go back to Jesus.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if you on that hospital bed, if you're on that hospital bed, you've been studying Osiris for the last 13 years, but when you're on that hospital bed, a lot of the times people they go back to Jesus,
Yeah.
which kind of shows they never believe they don't really believe this information almost. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird, man.
Yeah, it's hard, bro. I
It's
mean, like I say, when you've because I have a theory like that, like the first like 7 to 8 years of your life is the most crucial, because that's kind of when you develop
yeah.
your habits of how you learn and how you perceive the world. So if you're kind of like giving Christianity and just all the fear of like, oh yeah, you're gonna go to hell if you don't believe in this, it's hard to like fully break that programming, even once you do come into the conscious information, because it's just so deeply embedded. You've been going to church all them years, hearing the pastor yell and shit, and seeing people run around and all the music. It's just deeply in your subconscious. So a lot of times, that's really people's true, I guess, foundation, spiritually, a lot of times. And it takes a lot of work to really like remove that programming. So yeah, like it's one of those things, man, where it's like it takes a lot of time. It's not as easy as people make it seem on the internet. Reprogramming a deeply held belief, it takes time, and it's easier for some people than others. But yeah, it's like I definitely noticed that as well, though. Like a lot of people over the past few years, yeah, a lot of people definitely went back to the church. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. You know, why do you think that we all hear about the Mamba mentality and we see how great Kobe was at basketball, absolutely 100% dedicated to his craft. We see Michael Jordan dedicated. We seen Floyd Mayweather dedicated to his craft. We seen a lot of people in the entertainment field dedicated to their craft, and we seen
Right.
the outcome. Why do you think it's easier for them to be so dedicated, wake up, train 15, 16 hours a day? Why is it so easy for them to be dedicated, but it seems hard for people to be dedicated to the spiritual path and really do the meditation for 3 hours? You do the yoga. I don't hear the Mamba mentality when it comes to spirituality, but I hear about it when it comes to sports. So I'm just curious as to
Yeah.
why that might be.
Yeah, I think because a lot of times with spirituality, like most people are like reward driven. Um and a lot of times like
Oh,
there's no like tangible reward, at least like that you can see immediately when you engage in spiritual practices. So you might start doing the meditation, you might start, like doing rituals, and you might not see a noticeable, effect in your physical reality immediately. So a lot of people will kind of just give up.
mm,
And I just think like when it comes to sports and different things, there's more of like a pathway with that to actually see
mm,
tangible results for people. Whereas like with spirituality, it's kind of like, I mean, what are you even really doing this for? Because a lot of people
right.
get into this, and I feel like a lot of people become spiritual really just to try to like flex on other people, or kind of try to like make themselves feel superior. But it's not really about, accomplishing their own personal goals. It's kind of just like another decoration for the ego. Um, and so yeah,
Mm,
that's kind of how I look at a certain way. I think a lot of people come into this without really a real knowing or a destination of what they're trying to do. And like I say, versus entertainment, it's like, okay, yeah, if I'm making music, I know that one day I want to, sell 1 million records, or go on tour, or get a record deal, or make great music. Whereas with spirituality, it's like, what's your intention, and only you can really determine that. So yeah, I
mm,
just think it's a little different when you get into spirituality, because the the outer world, I feel like, doesn't respect it as much. Because if you
mm,
tell the average person like, yeah, I'm gonna spend the next 5 to 10 years meditating, I'm gonna just go off the grid and just focus 100% on spirituality, most people wouldn't really know how to respond to that or relate to that. So I just think it's a
mm.
different dynamic with the spiritual versus, the entertainment and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely agree. More people should be like that, you know.
Indeed. Indeed. Before, once again, family, I want to take some Q&A from y'all tonight before we get out of here. I got the link in the chat posted again. We taking some I want y'all to share an experience, or if you have a question for the brother in terms of the topic tonight, click the link that I just shared in the chat and come on the show. I all learn from each other. So I just posted the link, y'all. So if y'all want to come on, click on the link. Before we get to some questions, I see a couple of people in the back right now. What are some of the main ways would you say to activate these psychic abilities? Like, what can we do when we end the show, and if people can start to implement the rest of this year and the rest of their lives, that you think is some of the best, great ways that have worked for you that they could start to implement in their lives?
Yeah, one thing you can do that's like pretty simple, that doesn't require a lot, is you want to get into like dark therapy. So you want to like spend time in a room of like complete darkness. You want to unplug all the
Mm,
electronics, you want to unplug anything that can kind of interfere with the energy, and you want to like
mm,
start meditating and just spending time in that dark room, because what that'll do, that it'll actually get your body to release more melatonin, and that will kind of
mm,
allow you to get deeper into like a trance like state. And that's really the
right.
key to awakening a lot of this stuff, is like you have to bypass the conscious filter and kind of go into like that
Mhm,
trance, like more subconscious realm of the mind. And so meditating in the dark room, that can help you a lot. And just meditating in general, visualization will probably be your best friend. A lot of people don't really just understand the power of just every single day just doing certain visualization exercises. So just simple things like I'll just imagine just like golden light descending from the sky and just coming into my pineal gland, or I'll just absorb
Right.
the energy around me and just, you know, move that energy from the crown through the body and rotate that energy around the body through the chakras. Doing things like this can wake up that dormant part of you, and it can awaken these psychic centers within the body. And you know, this is kind of when we start talking about like astral traveling and remote viewing, just simple things, just like closing your eyes and getting in tune
Mm.
with your astral body. So getting in tune just with even practicing astral traveling. Like a lot of people don't know that you can just be sitting on your bed or just sitting somewhere on the couch and just mentally see yourself stand up from the